Hello, guys. Welcome back to Office Hours Politics Edition. I am your host, Sienna Alley. This episode is not a conspiracy theory. It is not speculation. Everything you are about to hear has been documented by government investigations, revealed through the Freedom of Information Act releases, and confirmed in declassified intelligence memos or admitted by agencies under congressional oath. Today's episode is titled From MK Ultra to Social Media Psyops: The Hidden History of U.S. Intelligence Experiments. If you've ever wondered why the CIA drugged people without their consent, the FBI infiltrated civil rights movement, the Pentagon ran psychological operations online, Facebook data got weaponized, TikTok and Twitter became battlefield grounds for propaganda, social media algorithms have geopolitical implications, and why the public opinion can be shaped invisibly in real time. This episode connects it all. You'll see how the U.S. intelligence agency went from LSD experiments to media manipulation to psychological warfare to digital surveillance to an algorithm influence. We are going into a full historical sourcing. So, without further ado, let's begin. Let's go back to the moment where everything starts. Our story begins right after World War II. The Cold War is heating up. The CIA is newly formed. And according to CIA historian John Marks, the agency becomes obsessed with one idea: mind control. Why? Because of fear or narrative that the Soviets and the Chinese have developed techniques to control the human mind. As revealed during 1975 Church Committee investigation, the CIA believed that communist powers have mastered brainwashing after observing American POWs in Korea who gave false confessions and appeared psychologically broken. The American intelligence community freaked out. 1953 classified memo entitled MK Ultra Charter, the CIA director Alan Dulles approved a program designed to explore every possible means of controlling human behavior. The memo outlined hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, electric shock, radiation, toxins, and most notoriously, LSD. The CIA had discovered LSD in the late 1940s through a chemist working with Sandoz Pharmaceuticals. According to declassified correspondence between the CIA officials and this pharmaceutical company, the agency immediately saw LSD as a potential tool for interrogations. They didn't know how it worked. They didn't know the right dose. They didn't know the effect on individuals. So what they did do, they experimented on people without their consent. One of the most surreal chapters of MK Ultra was something that the CIA in internal documents referred to as Operation Midnight Climax. This is not satire. This is what the CIA actually named it, and here's what happened. According to declassified CIA safe house reports, the CIA set up apartments in San Francisco and New York that were disguised as brothels. Sex workers were paid by the CIA to bring unsuspecting men to these locations. Behind one-way mirrors, the CIA officers watched. While the men were occupied, they secretly dosed them with LSD and observed. How did they react? Did they panic? Did they become suggestible? Did they reveal personal information? The CIA operatives would take notes while drinking martinis. Yes, this detail appears in the multiple testimonies and is confirmed by interviews in the 1970s. George White, the narcotic agent who ran the safe house, wrote in a letter later uncovered by a journalist, quote, "I was a very minor missionary, actually a heretic. I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun, fun, fun. That is not just disturbing, it is revealing. It shows how intelligence experiments can drift into the space of moral vacuum where oversight disappears." Operation Midnight Climax ran for more than a decade. Hundreds of people were experimented on. No one gave consent. No one knew what was actually happening, and many people had psychological mental breakdowns. And as documented in 1963 in an Inspector General report, the CIA admitted, quote, No operational benefits were discovered, unquote. In other words, it was trauma for sport disguised as national security research. This is when MK Ultra story intersects with tragedy. Frank Olson was a U.S. Army biochemist who worked with the CIA on biological warfare. In November 1953, during a retreat to Maryland, Olson was given LSD without his knowledge. This fact was confirmed by a 1975 White House report ordered by President Ford. For days after the dosing, Olson became paranoid, unstable, and deeply distressed. 9 days later, he plunged from a 13th floor window in a hotel in Manhattan. The CIA claimed it was suicide, but according to the Rockefeller Commission in 1975, CIA officials admitted that the dosing was unauthorized. Later investigations suggest that Olson had wanted to leave the program and knew too much. In 1994, there was a forensic report done on his body, which concluded that the impact wounds were inconsistent with a fall, signs of blunt force trauma, and his injuries suggested that he may have been unconscious before exiting the window. Olson's son called it a murder disguised as a suicide. And this case reveals something deeper. When intelligence agencies operate without oversight, the boundary between experimentation and violence becomes dangerously thin. While the CIA was playing with LSD abroad and at home, the FBI was launching its own program, COINTELPRO. This is like a crazy acronym. As revealed in documents stolen from an FBI office in Pennsylvania in 1971 and later confirmed in a congressional testimony, this program was a series of operations aimed at surveilling, infiltrating, discrediting, and distributing domestic political movements. Targets included Martin Luther King Jr., the Black Panther Party, Malcolm X, anti-war student groups, feminist organizations, socialist and communist groups, civil rights leaders, and indigenous movements. The most infamous document was in a 1967 FBI memo instructing agents to, quote, prevent the rise of a messiah who could unify and electrify the militant Black nationalist movement. This is the United States government on paper, explicitly stating that Black political unity is a national security threat. The FBI spread false rumors, forged letters, encouraged infighting, planted informants, and incited violence. This program was not surveillance. It was a form of psychological warfare on American citizens. It laid the foundation for future influence operations. According to testimony from former CIA Director William Colby, the agency ran a massive media influence program beginning in the 1950s known as Operation Mockingbird. The Church Committee revealed that more than 400 American journalists, including major names in top newspapers, worked knowingly or unknowingly with the CIA. They help shape public opinion on U.S. foreign policy, the Cold War, Cuba, Vietnam, and anti-communist sentiment. The CIA asserts infiltrated CBS, Time Magazine, The Washington Post, and The New York Times. This is not fringe. This was mainstream. Mockingbird is the precursor to modern algorithm influence operations. If this program was about manipulating activists, Mockingbird was about manipulating the general public. So we covered a few different operations, but that was just the warm-up, because everything the U.S. learned from these experiences shaped the next era. Psychological warfare goes digital. As we move into the 1980s, something shifts. The U.S. stops thinking of psychological operations as covert experiments. They start thinking about them as formal military strategy. This transition is documented in a now declassified CIA manual titled Psychological Operations in Guerrilla Warfare. This manual was distributed to fighters during the U.S.-backed covert war in Nicaragua. It outlines in clinical and chilling detail how to manipulate public perception, stage fake events, incite violence and blame the enemy, exploit cultural symbols, break the will of local populations. One passage reads, quote, "The guerrilla must be skilled in the art of persuasion and manipulation of public opinion," unquote. Another section advises fighters to use, quote, "calculated terror to intimidate political opponents." This is the U.S. intelligence community formalizing something that has been practiced for decades, propaganda. And it's not supplemental to warfare. It is warfare. Psychological operations became a core pillar of U.S. military doctrine, not a side project. Not a Cold War experiment, a strategy. During the Reagan years, the Pentagon expanded its psychological operations unit and began integrating them into every major military campaign. This is the bridge between the Cold War and the digital era. Because once the U.S. militarizes information, the next step is inevitable, digitizing it. 9/11 didn't just change U.S. foreign policy, it transformed the entire ecosystem of intelligence, surveillance, and psychological operations. According to internal Pentagon directives released years later, the global war on terror required not only fighting insurgencies, but shaping the information environment. What does that mean? It means that the U.S. military began fighting on two fronts, the physical battlefield and the information battlefield. In a 2003, a classified Pentagon report stated, "Information is the new battle space. Controlling the narrative is as important as controlling the territory." This leads to the creation of new units within the U.S. military. Joint Information Operations Command, U.S. Cyber Command, Online Psychological Operations Team deployed abroad, Pentagon contracts with social media monitoring firms. But here's the twist. Most social media platforms didn't exist yet. YouTube launched in 2005, Twitter in 2006, and Facebook went public in 2006 as well. So the U.S. began preparing for an environment that didn't exist yet, but would soon. In Iraq, U.S. psychological operations involved paying Iraqi newspapers to publish pro-U.S. stories, creating fake Iraqi political parties, planting fabricated stories, managing perception campaigns to influence tribal leaders. A 2005 internal report exposed that the Pentagon had spent over $100 million on Iraqi media manipulation alone. In Afghanistan, the U.S. ran village-level influence operations, radio broadcasts, targeted messages, funding local influencers, psychological profiling of tribal networks. This was the first large-scale attempt to use behavioral science to map an entire society during wartime. Internally, the war on terror also expanded surveillance, mass data collection, social media monitoring, partnership between intelligence agencies and tech companies. These partnerships were revealed years later during Snowden leaks. The U.S. had built the infrastructure for digital psychology operations long before most Americans realized the internet was not just a communications tool, but a battlefield. In 2013, Edward Snowden leaked a treasure trove of documents. The public learned two things. The U.S. intelligence community was mass collecting data from global communication networks. This included emails, phone metadata, social media interactions, location tracking, contact networks, search queries. Intelligence agencies wanted this data not only for surveillance, but to shape behavior. The UK intelligence slide deck, made in collaboration with the NSA, described programs with names like Badger, Gambit. These programs aim to alter online conversations, manipulate public opinion, sabotage activists, plant false information, and track social movements. One document literally states the mission as, quote, "using online techniques to influence and disrupt human behavior," unquote. This is psychological warfare going digital, not experiments, operations. Now we can move into the era where psychological operations go corporate. In 2018, whistleblower Christopher Weil revealed that Cambridge Analytica, tied to billionaire Robert Mercer and advisor Steve Barone, had illegally harvested the Facebook data of 87 million people. They used psychographic profiling, personality mapping, targeted political messaging, micromanipulation strategies, and meme warfare to influence voter behavior. This company didn't just do this in the US presidential election. They operated in Trinidad, Kenya, India, Nigeria, Mexico. The company's executives admitted on hidden camera, quote, "It's not propaganda if it works," unquote. What? And here's the key point. They learned many of their techniques from US and British military psychological operations doctrine. The company is MK Ultra with algorithms. It is all these different operations in a different way. In 2022, a series of internal Twitter communications were released to journalists. The files showed FBI agents flagging tweets to remove, DHS advertising Twitter on threat narratives. One internal document revealed that the Pentagon was running a network of fake Arabic language accounts pushing U.S. messaging in the Middle East. Twitter employees were aware, but they were told not to expose the accounts. This is internal corporate email. It ain't conspiracy. By the 2020s, the battlefield has fully shifted into an algorithm environment. TikTok becomes a national security obsession in Washington. Why? Because the TikTok's algorithm is not neutral. No algorithm is. It influences in the recommendation system. It influences over youth culture, political attitudes, nationalist sentiments, narratives of war and injustice. Intelligence officials have stated algorithms are the new propaganda machines. In 2023, TikTok faced intense pressure from the US government, not only because of security data concerns, but because TikTok had a platform where pro-Palestine content vastly outperformed mainstream narratives. Members of Congress publicly accused TikTok of brainwashing children. The implication was clear. If a platform doesn't reflect U.S. foreign policy interests, it becomes a threat. By 2025, deepfake technology had advanced to a point where video evidence can be fabricated, political speeches can be cloned, activist voices can be imitated, real-time face swapping can generate false confessions, false war footage can spread globally in minutes. As one 2024 NATO report warned, deepfakes are not just a threat to elections, they're a threat to reality itself. In 2023, Meta removed a network of AI-generated fake accounts tied to pro-US military influence campaign. The accounts featured fake faces, fake jobs, fake backstories, fake political opinions, fake grassroots supports. These accounts were pushing pro-US foreign policies, anti-China narratives, anti-Russian narratives, Middle East messaging, all using the algorithm and AI-generated personas. The scale is no longer human. It's on a computer. One of the most chilling documents to emerge in recent years comes not from the CIA or NSA, but from NATO's Innovation Task Force. They call it cognitive warfare. According to the 2001 NATO Innovation Challenge briefing, the human mind is now a battlefield. Cognitive warfare seeks to weaponize the process of perception, decision-making, and understanding, unquote. This is not a metaphor. This is a doctrine. The briefing lists objectives like influence the will of population, alter decision-making at levels, destabilize social coherence. And the most important part is everyone is a target. In the Cold War, the battlefield was ideology. In the war on terror, the battlefield was fear. In the digital age, the battlefield is cognition, your perception, your belief, your sense of what is real. The idea is no longer to persuade a population, it's to overwhelm and fragment its reality. This is what scholars call epistemic instability, a crisis where truth becomes contested, chaotic, and manipulatable. An intelligent service thrives in chaos. And here's the twist that almost no one saw coming. In the 2020s, corporations become intelligence agencies in everything but name. Companies like Meta, Google, Amazon control data, attention, and infrastructure on a scale no government has ever reached. According to 2024 Rand Corporation report, quote, big tech firms now surpass nation states in their ability to shape the information domain, unquote. In other words, the power to conduct psychological operations have left the executive domination of governments. It now sits in private algorithms, in opaque recommendation systems, data brokers, ad tech firms, and influencer networks. You no longer need CIA black budget operations. You just need an algorithm, a target demographic, data, a political objective, and the platform will do the rest. This is why geopolitical conflicts today play out not just in parliament or on the battlefield, but in Instagram Reels, TikTok trends, Twitter hashtags, YouTube recommendations, where your engagement is weaponized. The truth becomes collateral damage. Here's where things get even more wild, because the next generation will not just target what you believe, it will target how you feel. According to 2023 DARPA research outline, the Pentagon is developing tools in detect emotional states from phone sensors, map population sentiment in real time, predict political unrest before it happens, deploy automated counter-influence messaging. Imagine, your government sees the public anger about a protest is rising, not by reading the news, but by reading the emotional data from millions of devices. They deploy AI-generated content to calm the public, to distract, to redirect, to discredit, to deviate. This is not science fiction. This is being built right now. This is the logical conclusion of 70 years of psychological warfare evolution. MK Ultra tried to manipulate individuals. AI will manipulate populations. Let's talk consequences. If governments manipulate online discourse, corporations shape political awareness through algorithms, and AI can influence emotions in real time, the core assumption of democracy is it's done. Democracy assumes that people have access to the truth. People can form independent opinions. People can evaluate competing arguments. But what happens when the truth is unstable? Narratives are engineered. Every opinion is influenced by an invisible force. This is not a dystopian future. This is the present. We're living in a political environment where elections are influence campaigns. Protests are data points. Online communities are infiltration targets. This is the final evolution of psychological warfare, not to control your mind, but to control your world. Oh my God, guys, that was a lot. I'm not going to end on despair, because awareness is resistance. Psychological operations rely on invisibility. They rely on populations who don't understand how information works. They rely on people assuming that the algorithm is natural. They rely on people accepting official narratives at face value. They rely on confusion, fragmentation, emotional overwhelm. Because once you know the history, once you see the pattern, you can't be manipulated in the same way, not fully, not blindly, not passively. The most powerful thing you could do is to understand this, is to diversify your information diet, is to notice emotional manipulation, question the consensus, study history, study politics, stay politically literate, and above all, stay critical of power. Because the real target of psychological operation is not your opinion, it's your ability to think independently. That has been the episode for today. Thank you guys so much for listening. I am Ziana Ali. I've been your host. If you enjoyed this episode, please like it. Leave a comment, share with a friend. As always, stay curious, stay politically aware, and never stop asking who benefits from the story you're being told. See you next week, guys.